candid about an awful moment in their life, or is this beyond the pale?
Well, first of all, I just want you to give me a few minutes because I believe that Liam Neeson deserves a medal, and I'll tell you why. Liam Neeson, I've listened to the whole transcript. Liam Neeson was talking about his film Revenge, and he's talking about revenge doesn't do anyone any good. He mentions the fact that being brought up in Northern Ireland, he understands how destructive that can be. He went on to tell a story of a situation whereby a friend of his had been raped. Now, if you listen to everything he's talking about in the moment, and you can't blame Liam Neeson for thinking what he feels, because this is what, and this is a while ago, this is what society has shown him that black people do, Muslims do, this is what society has wrongly shown him, this is what the media have wrongly portrayed to him. So in that moment, he said for a week, he was going around looking to kill a black person or a black, and he did that in quotation marks. Now, what he actually went on to say is that he was ashamed and horrified by the way he felt. Yes? He's not ashamed and horrified and wanted to commit the act of revenge. He's ashamed and horrified because that is what he thought about all black people. After a week, he realized he was wrong. That is what he said. I'm ashamed and horrified of the way I felt. Now, depending on how you want to spin this story, now it's about he was going to kill a black person.
We want to ventilate
that is not what
that is not what I got from that. Think about it. We don't want to spin it.
I beg your pardon?
I say we don't want to spin it. We want to think about it and ventilate it. It's an important subject.
No, it's been spun. It's been spun, because if you want to think about what he's actually saying, the context, which is why he then said to the lady, in his voice, I've got a particular set of skills if you don't report this in the way that it is meant. Now we're talking about, and he threatened to kill the woman. What he's actually saying is that he's horrified and ashamed of the way he felt. He went on to say that. That is exactly what he went on to say, which meant that he was ashamed of the way he felt, but you cannot blame him for thinking that, because I said earlier, with the whole Raheem Sterling talking about the influence the media has, you cannot blame people for thinking Muslims, because of Muslim grooming gangs, Jamaican yardie gangs, then look at Muslims and Jamaicans in a negative light. And he's admitting that that is the way he viewed it. So for this one black person who raped this woman, he then looked at it from the perspective of all black people are racist. Now what he's actually saying is that this is what I thought, this is what I saw, and I am ashamed and horrified. And after a week, I said to myself, what am I doing? That is the reality behind it. As much as people are now jumping on this bandwagon of how terrible it is, what he's done, he's come out and he's told the truth. Now, the big problem we have is when people are afraid to admit the way they actually feel, everybody's now going to say, oh, if he had said, I have more respect for him now than had he come out and said, I've viewed all black people as equal, I just view everybody as equal. What he said was, for a week, because of the stress I was under when my friend was raped by a black person, and because of what the narrative around black people and Muslims, and this is many years ago, surrounding the perception we have of them, I then wanted to kill every black person because, as far as I'm concerned, as I was taught, black people are racist. He said he was horrified and ashamed for thinking that, but that is not the story we're telling. We now want him to be pilloried, we want to never let him work again. People are now going to be afraid to tell the truth on how they feel. And I always say, we are all unconscious racists. And he said unconsciously for a week and a half, that's how he felt. We have people who've been doing it and keeping it quiet for 20 years, but as long as you don't admit it, then we think everything is okay. Now, the big problem we have is this witch hunt is now going to stop the process of people now, as in Rwanda, keep talking about a truth and reconciliation. Let's hold our hands up and say, I'm unconsciously racist. Don't blame me. This is what I've been wrongly told, which is what he's been said. And he's ashamed and embarrassed by it. So why is he being pilloried for it?
There's so much going on there, isn't there? I mean, it's important, as you say, to see the context of the whole thing, not just look at the 15-second soundbite, see the context of the whole thing, try and appreciate the nuance. And in a sense, that idea of sharing thoughtfully, very candidly, a stream of consciousness, as you say, if we want to ventilate sensitive issues around race, then people have to be given the opportunity to do that. Others will say, now, hang on a minute, the 15-second soundbite is all that people actually will hear, and therefore, as a civilised society, it behoves people to react strongly, to think about, and you'll see this on Twitter, and you'll see this on Twitter, won't you? People saying, take away his OBE, boycott his films, etc.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's take down the statue of Winston Churchill, who is a white supremacist and a mass murderer. He's a white supremacist, and let's talk about him talking about the superiority of the Aryan race.
John Barnes, I've just finished the Andrew Roberts, the excellent Andrew Roberts biography of Winston Churchill, where it's unequivocal. Yeah. I mean, you know, he held the views of his age, didn't he? Does it make him a less impressive?
And so did Liam Neeson. So did Liam Neeson. And is Liam Neeson any different? Liam Neeson, he held the view of not only his age, the age that is actually happening now. So what's the difference? How is William Churchill a hero when he spoke about, he believes in gassing the lesser races, but he's a hero, And when Liam Neeson comes out and he admits that he was wrong in what he did, whereas Winston Churchill would never admit he was wrong, never, and he still, if he was alive now, he would still believe in the superiority of the Aryan race. But Liam Neeson, someone who admits that after a week and a half of thinking what he thought, he was wrong, which is fine as far as I'm concerned. We're now pillaring him.
Okay, I suppose what we can't do, I mean, the Winston Churchill thing is a digression.
I mean,
what we can't do is judge historical figures by the morality of today. That becomes problematic.
No, well, exactly, but you can't judge what happened 30 years ago. You can't judge Liam Neeson 30 years ago in terms of the way he actually thought, because you're not saying this is what he felt last week. He's talking about a long time ago, and he said after a week, he was horrified and ashamed in terms of what he felt.
Well, one thing we can say with conviction, and you may accuse me of being a tad cynical for saying this, but we are... as a sideline to this, we are talking about the film. So there's some global publicity that's been generated. You get the sense from listening to what he's saying, it's almost a stream of consciousness. He's been led to a place he didn't particularly plan on going to. But that's just my instinct.
That's not from Liam Neeson's point.
But the effect is to have publicity for the film.
Point of view. People are talking about Liam Neeson never working again. You think he's done this because he wants to promote a film? Absolutely not. We're now talking about Liam Neeson never working again, boycotting his films, and in terms of what the perception people are going to have of him, and you think he did this on purpose? Absolutely not. Not from his perspective, maybe from the perspective of the filmmakers or that interview, the woman who gave that interview. And then to suggest, as I saw on television, the fact that when he gave his joke about, I've got a particular set of skills and I will find you, and we're having people, sensible, intelligent people now saying, oh, I really believe that he threatened to kill her, and that's supposed to be taken seriously. This is the influence that the media has in, if they want a particular perception, and this is what has been done to black people for hundreds of years, the perception we may have of a particular group of people, and the perception we now have of Liam Neeson, based on something, from my perspective, it's positive. And he should be applauded for saying, yes, I was an unconscious racist, and after a week I realized that I was horrified that I was. And people are going to be afraid of admitting it now because of what's happened to Liam Neeson.
I mean, that is...
Absolutely not.
I mean, why do we have so many, you know, Africans, like, defending Liam Neeson? And, like, but there's so many other Africans, like, well, not just Africans, but people all over attacking Liam Neeson. There's so many people coming to Liam Neeson's defense, and, like, I get it where the anger is coming from. But from my perspective, but I'm Mexican and white, so this doesn't really relate to me that much, you know, because I never really had these type of feelings before to, like, a specific race, you know, I've never really had that. But from my perspective, this has happened years ago, like 30 or 40 years ago. This wasn't last week, at least what from Liam Neeson's saying. And, like, it is true that the narrative has been spun around. It's been spun around so easy in the past week. And, like, when I first heard it, I was like, you know what? I want to actually get to the actual story. But in today's age of the internet, you have to click a link and then click another link and then click another link in order to get to the actual story of what Liam Neeson said. But as soon as this came out, this was already spun around that, oh, Liam Neeson's a racist, blah, 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 blah. I mean, I've seen the Twitter, I've seen the interview. I don't know, man. Like, I know why people are upset, but at the same time, this is something that happened years ago, and Liam Neeson came out and said publicly that, hey, I was ashamed of these feelings. This only happened for a week, and I realized what I was doing was wrong. But you gotta think how many people never come back from that. How many people who, like white supremacists, who thought about a racist idea and they decided, hey, that's the narrative. That's what I'm going to stick with. You know, I don't like this specific race, and that's who I am. Blah, 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 blah. But someone like Liam Neeson was able to come out and say, yeah, I was wrong in those feelings, and I was ashamed of it, and that was it. You know, Liam Neeson didn't really come out and try to promote a film. He was just talking about something he felt like years ago. And we're living in a day and age where people are punishing people for what they did fucking years ago. And it's so baffling. Like, you can't tell me there's not one human being on this planet that hasn't done or said something fucking stupid. There's not one. There's not one human being that has not done one thing wrong. Everyone has done something stupid or fucked up at one time. And from Liam Neeson's case, it sounded like this only happened like years ago, like decades ago. And he was already able to say, I was ashamed of it, and this was the narrative I was giving, and now I have a different perspective. But really, if you think logically, how many people on this planet were able to do that? How many people were able to look at a specific race and hear the narrative, oh, this specific group is bad, this specific religion, these specific people are bad, and that's what I'm going to stick to. But how many people were able to say on this planet, I was wrong, and that was it. I was wrong. We're living in an age where people can't have any redemption qualities. You know, people do and say fucked up things. We all do. And if it happened years ago and you're able to admit that it happened, you're able to say that I was wrong, are we really going to punish people for trying to better themselves? Like, everyone is trying to better themselves, but hey, that's just me. It's whatever, that's just me, right? I'm a mixed race, you know, this really has nothing to do with, you know, me, because this has never actually happened to me before, but I don't know, we're just living in an age where people just seem to not be able to have any redemption qualities whatsoever. That's just my 2 cents. You guys can leave it however you want. You can leave it in comments below. Say what you want. You know, that's just how I feel. And guys, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. I gotta go for now. Peace out.